All right. Going to try not to suck this time. High standards. Mac Engel, Engel Podcast. Thank you for joining me. Before I get into the topic of this episode, which has to do with travel and movies, two of my favorite subjects, I need to whine here for a second or two of why being a sports fan is like having your nuts kicked in over and over again with a baseball bat. And you would think of anybody who would get this, why not to do it, it would be me. Because I've been covering sports and I've seen how the sausage is made for more than 20 years. 20 years. So I don't know if you can see this or not. This is a vintage shirt. It is vintage now. This is my alma mater, University of Kansas. I went there in the 90s. I graduated with honors. Well, it's kind of a vague subject. Honors, it's subjective. Anyways, I went to Kansas in the 90s. So I'm a fan. I'm not diehard, but I'm a fan. And I am a sucker for an underdog. And I realize if you'd sit there and say, well, then you can't support Kansas because the basketball program is a well-paid machine and they're not the underdog, they're Goliath. True. Football, however, is a different matter. The Jayhawks are but a feeble bird. But this season, it's going to be different. This season, we're going to be great. And this is why I should not be a sports fan. Kansas last season had its best season in like 10 years. And this season, all the expectation and hype was this team might go to the college football playoff. And here I was, dumb enough to believe it. Well, now they're 1-3, having lost 3 games despite having leads in the fourth quarter of those 3 losses. Do you know how hard that is? Not for my Jayhawks, baby. They can pull off that magic every time. And it's a reminder why I should just be an observer and not a fan. Because as a fan, all I did was care and all I did was get hurt. All right, speaking of movies, I love 80s action movies. It's a great genre. Yeah, I know it's pretty much dead. I can't find a good action movie anymore. Every now and then, Sylvester Stallone will crank out a bunch of old guys and do another Expendables, and I'll sit there and watch that. But for the most part, the action genre is kind of non-existent anymore for whatever reason, I don't know. However, I was really excited when Netflix recently released a new, what I thought was, action movie with a shout-out and homage to Sylvester Stallone's First Blood. The new movie Rebel Ridge is out. Rebel Ridge. It stars this British actor named Aaron Pierce. He's like 6'3", he's built like a tank, and he convinces you physically he could kick the living hell out of 10 people with both arms tied behind his back and both of his legs cut off. That's how big this dude is. So I'm really excited about watching Rebel Ridge. I never get to watch movies anymore. I don't know why, but I don't. I can watch 4 30-minute episodes of TV shows, but somehow stringing together the same 2 hours for a film is too much math for me. But I watched Rebel Ridge. I was excited about it. Now, I did watch it over 2 days, like an hour here and an hour there, but I was really excited about it. In the first half hour, 45 minutes, I'm like, this is going to be awesome. Aaron Pierce is going to kick ass, and he's going to beat the hell out of the small-town sheriff who's done him wrong, and Don Johnson. This was an updated version of the 1982 classic action movie First Blood starring Sylvester Stallone. All the signs are there. Ex-vet gets crossways with the small-town cop, it goes to hell, and the ex-vet kicks the living crap out of all the goofball sheriffs who mean well but have no business going mano-a-mano against a big-time Hollywood action star like Sylvester Stallone, or in this case, Aaron, did I say Pierce? Maybe it's Aaron Pierre. I don't know. Doesn't matter. He's a great-looking dude. And this was the frustrating thing for me. This could have been an outstanding action flick. All the elements were there. Guy's great looking. He's built. Don Johnson is terrific as the jerk-hole cop. It's a small town. Everything is there. And all the guns, all the hardware is there for him to shoot the hell out of everything. But instead, and I don't know why this has happened, I have a theory, Hollywood, even though we are completely desensitized now to images that would have made us vomit in the 80s, Now we're completely desensitized to all that, but this movie decides to become a thinking man's John Rambo. John Rambo couldn't spell his name. And now this guy is a thinking man's John Rambo who thinks his way through what should have been a problem solved with a couple of AK-47s, an Uzi, a knife, and his bare hands. Instead of Rebel Ridge being a great action movie, it's a pretty good action movie. But it is a level of frustration as I sit here and beg Hollywood, please bring back the 80s action flick. All right. Now, this is what I'm really here to whine about today. Or actually, this isn't a whine. This is more of a chance to share something with you that you might find really kind of fun to watch. And I would warn you, if you are listening to this, this is one of these you're going to kind of want to watch because I'm going to share a lot of pictures with you. I love travel. I love to travel. I love to go places that I haven't been. I have visited 4 continents. I have visited all 50 states. And here's a very important distinction about visiting someplace. Some people out there say, to claim that you visited a place like a state, you have had to spend the night there. Complete total crap. That's not true. My standard, and it should be your standard as well as everybody else, because the world would be a lot better off if we adhere to what I think and my opinions. If you go someplace, you have to do something that's specific to that area, state, or city to be able to say, yes, I visited California. You have to go someplace and do something that is you can only do there. So I know some people said we have to spend the night there. I went to New York one time. I was in New Jersey. I went to a Cowboys game. My flight left out of New York City, LaGuardia, which is in Queens. I got to the hotel at 1 in the morning. My flight left at 6. So technically, I was in the hotel room for 4 hours, but I didn't do anything. So that's cheating the system. That's cheating the game. No. And Chili's doesn't count. McDonald's doesn't count. Obviously, an airport doesn't count. You've got to go someplace and do something that you can't do anyplace else. So last year, I visited North Dakota. That was a big deal for me. That was number 50. I went over the border from Minnesota into North Dakota into Fargo, and I did Fargo things. Walked up and down Main Street, had a pizza, went to a museum, I went to the Fargo Dome, and yes, I even visited the tourist center there, which has it has movie props from the movie Fargo, including the wood chipper that the Coen brothers used at the end of the movie when Steve Buscemi's character gets jammed into a wood chipper. It was an actual wood chipper that they bought, used it for the movie. When they were done filming, a guy used it, just a local contractor actually used it until eventually I think the city or somebody involved bought it and brought it back, and it's on display for everybody to take a picture along with other movie props from the film that was made back in the 90s. Great movie, by the way. And little known fact, it really wasn't shot there. It was mostly shot in Minnesota because at that particular time, Fargo wasn't getting a lot of snow, and the snow was a really important element to that film. One other thing that was kind of cool about visiting Fargo, if you get a chance, that state has really leaned in to the fact that it is usually the last state that people visit as they try to get to all 50. And I let the people know it. There were these 2 nice ladies working in the tourism center there in Fargo. In fact, there was one woman I'm the only person there. It's the middle of the week. And she says, "Why are you here?" And I introduced myself. And I said, "You know what? This is actually my 50th state I visited." And there's another woman behind a desk in another room. And I can hear her say, "Oh, yeah?" And I swear to God, I thought it was Frances McDormand. It wasn't. Just a nice older woman who worked at the tourist center. She came out. I signed up for the Best is Last Club, I think is what they call it, and they gave me a T-shirt. Needless to say, it's one of the most prized possessions that I own. So along these same lines, one of the things that I've done in traveling is that if I'm I've learned this the hard way, and I would pass this along to anybody who's traveling, which is, if you don't think you're going to be back where you are in that present moment, and you're close to something, go do it. Because there's a good chance you're not going to go back. So if you're close to that museum, to that popular tourist site, to that hike, to that beach, to that restaurant that has the killer cheeseburger, hot dog, or whatever, you better go do it now, because chances are pretty good you're not going back. And that also speaks to things that you might buy. Like you see a shirt you really want. I always kick myself. First trip after graduate school, I'm in Italy and I see this really cool shirt. I'm like, nah, I'll come back. Okay, nice going, idiot. Needless to say, that shirt's gone. It was just a really cool shirt. So recently I was on a trip in Ohio. I was born in Ohio, and as I've gotten older, there's little details about that state, little places that I would like to visit. It has a national park up in the northeast part of the state. Haven't seen it, but there are other details that I've always said, man, you know what? If I'm ever close, I'm going to go check that out. A couple weeks ago, I was going to a Cowboys game. They were playing the Browns, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to make some time to do this. As a middle-aged guy, I am out of the closet and can admit freely that I am a history nerd. I am the guy that guy in the commercial, the insurance, Progressive insurance commercial says, do you know who reads books about submarines? My dad. Yeah, I'm the guy who reads books about submarines. In fact, when I watched that ad, I thought, oh, God, I read a book about submarines. It's really good, by the way. It's called Blind Man's Bluff. Anywho, so, I'm that guy who watches history movies, reads history books. I'm currently reading a book about Captain James Cook. I realize this is all pathetic for you, but for me and for middle-aged guys out there who can identify with it, come out of the closet and embrace who you are. So on my trip, there's one place I really want to go. There's two. I'm going to make the time to do it. And one of them is home of the Wright Brothers in Dayton, Ohio. I've read a book about the Wright Brothers. I've certainly sampled their work over the years, and I thought I'm going to be right there. So there it is, the original plot to where the house where the Wright brothers were born and grew up. It's in West Dayton, Ohio, and it's a neighborhood right off the main drag, and it's not much there because the house is gone, and instead they've turned it into a very, very small, modest tourist destination. You probably skip that one or just drive by it. However, the bike shop where Orville and Wilbur invented the airplane or worked on it. They worked on it in conjunction between Dayton, Ohio and Kitty Hawk, North Carolina. That's in existence, and that's become a museum, and that's worth your time. You're not going to need a lot of time, half hour, 45 minutes, whatever. But if you are an aficionado of these things, if flight fascinates you, I highly recommend West Dayton, or Dayton for the most part, and go visit the home of the Wright brothers, and specifically their bike shop and the National Parks Museum that is essentially adjacent to it. That was neat, because what they did, these guys are amazing, right? These guys were basically self-taught. They actually were newspapermen for a while, which kind of reinforces I really haven't done enough with my life. And they owned a bike shop, and eventually they figured out by watching birds. I've watched birds. I didn't invent a plane. How to invent flight. So that's a good one. But it was not the big one that I really, really wanted to do. Because even though I might be a big history nerd, I am a bigger borderline cinephile. And about 2 hours away, an hour and a half away from Dayton, 1 hour north of Columbus, is the home of the Shawshank Redemption. Now, most people don't know, forget, didn't bother to look, didn't care to look, that the very popular movie made in 1994, The Shawshank Redemption, which takes place in Maine, actually was filmed in Mansfield, Ohio, and specifically at the Ohio State Reformatory, which was opened in about 1850 and closed in about 1990, give or take. And it is a magnificent building. The architecture is amazing. It is one of these imposing Gothic structures that when you look at it, you think, oh my God, they would never build that today. And two, if ever I was incarcerated here, this would be the worst experience of my life. Now, I've seen this movie, like most people, no less than 58,000 times. And I am a sucker that if I can find a popular movie or TV site that was used, I'm going to go buy it and get a damn picture. Well, with here, I got a bunch. Like I said, the Ohio State Reformatory is 1 hour north of Columbus. It's easy to find, and it's basically become a tourist destination. They closed in about 1990, give or take. The movie was shot 3 or 4 years after that, and since then, it's become a national historical site, as well as apparently the greatest haunted house ever every fall. I missed that. I was kind of bummed about that. But there's two types of tours offered. You can do the guided tour, which I didn't do because I was cheap, and I did the self-guided tour. Most of the film was shot here. The outdoor scenes and things like that, they were shot in another part of Mansfield. But as you can see here with some of the pictures that I'm including, most of the filming was done here, including the prison cell scenes. Not all of them, obviously, for space, but a lot of them. And I have visited 2 other jails before. I visited Alcatraz a couple of years ago, and then I went and interviewed a person at a jail in West Texas-ish a couple of years ago as well. And those are harrowing and imposing and foreboding all in their own way, and they did not compare to this place. When I walked up and down that row of prison cells, and I saw how small those prison cells were, and at the time there were 2 beds. I saw that every cell that I saw had 2 beds. Alcatraz prison cells, I think, just had 1. Well, in the Ohio State Reformatory, I love that. They called it a reformatory. The Ohio State Reformatory, there were 2 beds per cell. And I'm thinking, I cannot imagine how miserable that would have been to be stuck in a cell that size. Forget by myself, with another person. And I'm pretty sure Andy and Red didn't share a cell. I'm pretty sure I think they all had their own cells in the movie. So anyways, I digress. Most of the things, like I said, the scenes that are famous from that movie were filmed there, and you can go see them yourself. The warden's office, the record player that Andy used to play the opera throughout the prison yard. There is the solitary confinement cell that's there. What else is there that was cool to see? Oh, the parole officer's boardroom where Red was originally rejected. And in fact, they have the actual parole paperwork from Morgan Freeman's character there on display. The actual prison yard where Andy and Red hung out and all that was not filmed there. Now, as you can see by a picture that I'm including, that's the picture of. It looks like it's exactly where Andy and Red sat side by side before Andy decided to make his great escape. Now, those parts obviously were not at the prison because they shot it at different locations. But there is one thing there from that particular sequence that is up there amongst my favorite scenes in any film I've ever seen, and that is the part where after Morgan Freeman gets out, he goes to the farmyard, and under a big giant tree and under a rock that shouldn't be there, he finds the box that Andy had left him, including the note that I think everybody who has ever seen the film falls in love with. And it's just a total charming tour that you can take. I think it cost me about $22, completely worth it. They have a gift shop. They have the police cars, main police cars that are out front. Go do this. This is not one of those pit stops that you will say, oh, that was a waste of time. We're talking big-time Hollywood film. We're talking The Shawshank Redemption. We're talking Andy, Red, Brooks, and one of the greatest movies ever made. So, keeping with that, I hope you'll make it.